everyone. Welcome to Sunday Politics, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloe. We're live for you at the INEC headquarters in Awka, the Anambra State, where we're monitoring the governorship election 2001 for you. 19 results from the different 19 local government areas have been turned in, and there's been some issues with 2 local government areas which are yet to be announced or declared because of disruptions, alleged violence, and threats to life of some of the officials of INEC. Tonight is perhaps a day the people of Anambra State, about over 5 million of the population of the people of Anambra State, are sitting to the edge of their state, waiting to know what becomes the outcome of this governorship election. Welcome on the show, everyone. We'll be taking you through this 1-hour journey. And of course, we keep our eye on what is happening on the inside. We just adjacent the room where the result is being collated, right here on the grounds of the INEC headquarters. I'm Sean Kimbaloe, your host for the show tonight. We're going to be touching on a few issues. We obviously know from the 19 result that has been announced, some of which is scrolling right now on your screen, you see a political party obviously in the lead, but we do not know the winner yet. Officially, INEC is going to be the one to announce the winner in this election, but of course we'll be getting reaction to know what exactly is the focus for this election, and that is what we're trying to unveil and unravel for you on the program tonight. It's a makeshift program, so permit me to give you as much of the information that you need, and in the best way we can do it for you tonight. First and foremost, let's get the reaction from the ruling All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, the party who is perhaps obviously in the lead in this election. It can't be called yet, but we know what the result is saying. But of course, let's get a reaction from the national chairman of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, Mr. Victor Oye. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Sunday Politics.
Thank you very much.
First and foremost, how does this come to you? The result is still hanging in the balance. You do not know. You are almost there, but you're not there yet. Until the result is fully announced, before you know whether or not you are carrying the day. But so far, has it been good for you?
Yeah. As you can see from the results so far announced, we are in the lead. And we are confident we're going to pull through in the end. And the election, the beautiful thing about this election, it was peaceful. The turnout was quite impressive. Our people came out unexpectedly to cast their votes because they knew the importance of this election. Their lives, their future, everything depended on that election, as at yesterday. So the results that are coming in indicate that the people have voted for us, and hopefully INEC should do the needful by announcing our candidate as the winner.
That can't happen just yet.
I say INEC should. I'm calling on them to do so.
Because they can't do so. You have 21 local governments, and 2 is still hanging. Not until when that is totally announced, because no governor will be governor of 19 local government or 18 local government who will be governor over 21 local government. Not until when that is announced before you know whether or not you can carry the day.
For me, we don't have any fears at all, because this is APGA State. APGA is a religion in Anambra State. Our people, it flows in our blood, because the government of Anambra State has performed, excellently, and the people are happy. So they want a continuity of the goodies that are coming from this government. That's why they have backed our party. Even if the elections are repeated 20 times, we win the election, because this is APGA State. It's not contestable at all.
But I mean, I'm not sure APGA has had this tough in your past elections. I mean, looking at the figures, is neck and neck in some local government. It's very contestable. The competition was very heated and very rife in several local government areas. It wasn't looking like it was a race that you were going to win outrightly, is it?
No. It's not contestable now. Forget the results you are watching here.
You can't forget the result. It's the result that is giving you that upper hand.
No, that's what I'm telling you. That out of 19 local government areas, a political party has won 17, the other two parties won 1-1. In an examination of 19, somebody got 17 over 19, and others got 1 over 19. Who is the leader? So it's very clear here. What happened is that the BVAS, the Bimodal Voters Accreditation Scheme, did not work optimally. That disenfranchised many people. If it had worked the way INEC, hyped it, I can tell you that the votes would have been massive for APGA. But we are happy with what has happened so far. At least we are sure by His grace we'll produce the next governor in the next 24 hours. We are sure. So for me, we are happy that we have delivered in this election. We've delivered, and the people are in for a better time. Our party has the capacity to transform the life of the people, and that is our major objective. It is the only political party in Nigeria that has a clear-cut ideology. Other political parties don't have ideology. I can bet you that.
What is the ideology?
Our ideology is to build a people-oriented government. Take the government to the people, make the people own the government. That is why our government is delivering the dividends of democracy to our people. We have built an international airport in 15 months without taking a loan from any bank. We have built an international conference center. We have built an international stadium, FIFA rated, and we are doing more, paying salaries as when due, agriculture, housing, roads. We are working, and that is why the people are happy with us. So we are ready to do more, and that is the opportunity we will have in Professor Soludo.
All right, so the result is not yet the final outcome. A winner is not yet called. We do not know who is going to be the next governor of Anambra State. But from what we're seeing, the reason why we're having this conversation with you, because we know that out of the 19 local governments that has been declared, you are obviously having 17 out of it. PDP has 1, and YPP has 1 local government area. Hiala and another local government is still pending. They're putting the figures together, the results of that local government together. But Hiala, obviously, we understand that election did not hold in Hiala. But in all of this, compared to the last 4 years, the election of 4 years, what would be your assessment within this election and the election of 4 years ago?
Let me tell you one thing. I have to be very frank, honest with you. The BVAS is a wonderful machine. If INEC could work on the BVAS to make it more optimally functional. Because what happened yesterday was network problem, malfunctioning machines and all that. And the beautiful thing about the machine is that it checkmated rigging. Nobody could vote more than once in this election. I witnessed it. A beautiful machine, unlike the smart card reader and the incident forms. If it were that, I can bet you by now this state would have been on fire. But that BVAS saved this state from unnecessary anarchy. I can bet you that.
So, I mean, that's your assessment of the conduct. What about security?
The security was beautiful. Beautiful. I went round as a monitor. I was going around. Everywhere we had enough policemen, enough security. And everywhere was peaceful. Our people are very peaceful people. And Anambrarians are not violent people. All these things you see were imported. We don't behave like that. Our people are very peaceful, kind-hearted. That's why they call us home for all. We are very hospitable people. So when the crisis, all this violence started, I became very worried because it is not part of our lives. We don't behave like that. And that was why the slightest opportunity our people had yesterday, they took it and came out to vote and voted peacefully, conducted themselves very peacefully. That is the beauty of Anambra State. And I can bet you there is no election that could have been as peaceful as this. This is the most peaceful election we have had in this state.
Ochivoye, to wrap up now, what lesson do you think we can take away from this election?
The lesson is that if we make some modifications, on the be vast. Anambra, Nigeria can conduct its elections with great integrity. And again, the electronic process is working. Let INEC, work on that and improve on it. Nigeria has the capacity to go electronic. We can vote electronically as well. You understand? I saw what happened yesterday, and I knew it's possible. That's the lesson we have to take away from this election, that electronic voting, electronic transmission of results are possible in Nigeria.
Chief Victor Oye, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Chief Victor Oye, the National Chairman of ABGA, thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you.
We'll take a break, everyone, and when we come back, other perspectives to this election. We're on the sideline of the collation of the Anambra governorship election 2021. When we come back, more insight to what happened, why we are here, or somewhat like a stalemate, and how we're getting out of it, the legal implication. We look at all of these ramifications when we return. Stay with us, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us right here on the program. We're on the sideline of the collation exercise for the Anambra governorship election 2021. We have somewhat reached a stalemate because the results are coming in, 19 local governments out of 21, but we do not know the winner just yet. Earlier on the program, we spoke with the national chairman of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, ABGA. We've also reached out to the agents and members or the leaders of some of the other political parties, but as of now, they've not showed up. But we'll continue with the program, of course. There you can see on my side what is happening on the inside. We keep our eyes on what is happening with those results. As INEC says, they're putting them together, and we are able to know the winner possibly tonight. I'm now being joined again to look at what is happening and what INEC is doing by Professor Samuel Ego. He is the resident electoral commissioner of INEC in Niger State. He's a supporting resident electoral commissioner for this election. He joins us right here on the set. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Prof, can you explain to Nigerians, a lot of millions of people who are watching right now, who are wondering, why don't we know the winner? What is going on?
Well, I came into INEC in 2017, August to be specific. And since I came, I've been deployed as part of many elections. I want to categorically say that this has been the most difficult election that I've experienced. Now, you have over 5,000 polling units across Anambra. You expect millions of people to come and vote. There's nothing complex. Ours is a first-past-the-post system. Once you secure the highest number of votes, and you meet geographical spread, you are good enough to be declared the winner of that election. But in this particular election, as you have seen since yesterday, we've had problem with extreme situation of low voter turnout. I supervised as a supervising resident electoral commissioner for 3 local governments: Onitsha North, Onitsha South, and Ogbaro local government areas. And my experience there can tell you why we have the kind of difficulty we have. In the 3 local government areas, you have registered voters in most of the ROAs between 14 and 18,000. The number of people accredited on election day when we commenced voting or at the end of voting was simply between 1,200 and 1,500. What are you talking? There is a whole state of fear, that had been created by the politics, of agitation for a separate state, in this part of the country. And threats, not just threats of violence, we have also seen violence. And IPOB has been able to enforce over time sit-at-home order. And so the fear of the repercussion of what IPOB could do to people, became the beginning of wisdom. Now, in many instances, we did the logistics. You procure the number of vehicles you need to carry staff, to carry personnel and material. Many of the suppliers commit to that, and they say, oh, we can give you 50 vehicles. Once election was a day, they say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't give you. I promise you 50, but I'll see if I can give you 20, if I can give you 15. And when you find out what is happening, many of them are saying, if we cooperate with INEC, if we deploy, if we make available our vehicles to do logistics for INEC, we don't know what will happen to us after the election. They may come back, in a vengeful mood, and we can't survive it. So that has, for me, been a major practical question. Because
but that makes it the most difficult election for you.
For me, I can tell you this, the voter turnout, I think, if you are scientific in terms of what we are seeing in many local governments, you're actually dealing with less than 25% voter turnout. And this is really not good for our democracy.
But in the case of Orumba, Ihiala, what can you tell? Because these are the outstanding two local government areas that we do not, that is keeping us from knowing the outcome of this election. But you see, as you saw in the argument and counter-argument going on, what has simply happened, and that is not new in this country, that it is the antics of politicians to resort to self-help. And when you have a mutual situation of different parties resorting to self-help, you cannot avoid the kind of stalemate that we are currently experiencing. So part of it is a level of anxiety and the fact that out of desperation, people are not even willing to give the rules of the game a chance. So in that context, what they do is basically to resort to self-help, in terms of, blocking voting where probably they think the other party has strength, deploying, their foot soldiers. And I mean, what makes Ihiala, for example, that election was not declared at all in Ihiala? I think from the story that is emerging, it is difficult to even ascertain whether voting in the real sense of the word took place. There was no deployment. We couldn't move to the polling units. People didn't come out to vote, and that goes back to the general atmosphere of fear that had been created. In fact, part of the analysis we did before the election was the indication that Ihiala shares a common border with Imo. And many people think that Imo is the hotbed of agitation. And therefore, if you are going to conduct a civil activity like election in Ihiala, which is very close to Imo, you have to be very clear and be very sure about your security deployment. And I think that itself, for me, increased the level of fear around Ihiala. So, I mean, you're talking about nothing less than 25,000 voting population in that area. I mean, if I'm not mistaken. So we are dealing with about 200 polling units in Ihiala. And so election in the whole of that local government cancelled because of fear of threat of violence. No, I don't think it has been cancelled. It didn't hold. At all? It didn't hold. Was it that there were no agents of INEC or ad hoc officials or INEC officials? You were not even allowed to deploy it. Let me give you an example, because when you talk to people outside, they may not understand, the density of the problem we are trying to describe. I was in Onitsha South yesterday. We had stayed over Iraq overnight, and we stayed in Iraq overnight, and all we needed to do yesterday morning was to deploy. Then the youth from that area barricaded the major streets, through which you can get to the PUs. And the police were there. They said, look, our duty is not to move outside this rack. We are here to secure the rack, but not to accompany materials to the polling units. And for that reason, they couldn't, deploy. They had to put a distress call through me. And I went there with my own security cover to be able to take our ad hoc staff to move from that rack to the polling units around there. So when you have that type of fear, scaled up in places around Ihiala, you actually seeing
factors that will not give courage to adult staff to move, that will not give courage to voters to come out to vote, and you are simply saying a situation that you are practically disabled and you are not able to do your logistics to the points of voting. That is a kind of situation.
The number of registered voters in Hiala is 148,407.
Yeah.
So that number of people were denied opportunity because of resistance.
Well, that is the kind of discussion that we need to have about the type of democracy we are running. You know, because at the core of the principle of democracy, as you and I know, is open participation in atmosphere of absolute freedom for citizens to exercise their franchise. And when that environment is precluded, you are actually raising a question mark about the possibility of deepening this democracy. Because for me, it raises a fundamental legitimacy question when less than 30% of the registered voter in a particular constituency will determine who either goes into the House of Assembly or become governor or become... I mean, this is not good for our democracy. Even though we are practicing first past the post, we really need to give citizens the opportunity to come out and vote, because that is where legitimacy matters. Yeah.
Without having to predict anything or preempt anything, 148,407 votes are potential votes.
Yeah.
And if you look at this election, if you look at the total votes that have been cast all together, I'm not sure there are more than 200,000 and 250,000.
That's exactly my point.
What is the danger in that?
The danger is that you are going to have governments that are so-called elected, but really governments that do not enjoy the popularity that they are supposed to enjoy, that do not enjoy the legitimacy that they are supposed to enjoy. Because if citizens in a constituency cannot be allowed to choose their leader, then what is the essence of political pluralism?
What is the direct implication for this result of this election?
It is that you are going to have many governments that people do not think they are responsible for bringing into existence.
I mean, the question I'm trying to ask is, when you have about 149,000 potential votes, and you have an election cancelled, or an election did not take place in that area, for the entire election, and the history of election that we know in this state, what does it mean? What is that interpretation of that when you have 149,000 possible votes that are not in the ballot?
So you are now going to have many disconnected citizens.
Can you conclude that election?
Well, I think until we take all the votes, we tally the votes from all the LGAs where elections held, then we can go back to our rules and procedures.
Can you declare a winner without conducting election in one local government out of 21?
It depends upon the final aggregation that we make, because you then have to look at that total figure and the distribution and the margin between candidates against what our rules prescribe. So it is very arbitrary for now to reach a definite conclusion about what will happen without going through this motion first.
All right. I'll say we mean, Prof, but we need to take another break. But when we return, everyone, we'll have our eyes still on what is happening on the inside. We're on the sideline of the Collation Center of the Anambra governorship election 2021, where we know for sure 19 results out of 21. 17 of those being carried by ABGA, one by PDP, and the other by YPP. Two are outstanding. One is contentious. One in Iala is cancelled because no election was declared. That was the status. But we'll keep an eye on it. We have a picture for you live that we're monitoring for you. As soon as we are able to get signal that the exercise or the process resumes again, we will go back to you, but we'll take a break, everyone. And when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. What becomes of this election? Can we call it? Can we conclude it? What will happen? What is the hope of this election? Can we know the winner? Can it be declared? These are many questions. I can't answer, but my guests will answer for you when we return from the break, everyone. Join us again. so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on Sunday Politics. We are on the sideline of the Anambra governorship election collation activity, which is happening right here on the grounds of the INEC headquarters in Anambra State, here in Awka. Hiala and Orumba, these are local government areas that are holding and keeping this election outcome in the balance. We cannot call, INEC cannot say for sure who is the winner until a few of these things are tidy. And tonight we've been speaking with a few people. First and foremost, we had on the program the national chairman of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, Victor Oye. We also reached out to some of the agents of the other political parties, but as of now, they've not turned up. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk to one or two of them before the end of the show. Let's continue our conversation with Professor Samuel Ego. He's the resident electoral commissioner of INEC in Niger State. He's on the ground as a supporting rec to supervise this election, and has been telling us about his experience and what really happened on the ground. Thank you so much, Prof, for your time tonight.
Thank you.
So, give us a sense of the lesson for INEC. Now we've seen the criticism against the beavers. It largely gave problems. Those are some of the reactions from voters and those who monitor. Any major lesson that came out to you for INEC?
Well, to begin with, I have read some of the newspaper headlines, and I have seen sentiments expressed by Nigerians, some of them on very clear and understandable grounds. But I think a lot of things that people would not understand is the difficulty, particularly surrounding this election. In fact, the discussion I had with some of my colleagues 4 days to this election got us to the conclusion that the success of this election is in holding it at all, not the level of perfection that you are going to experience. The fact that you are going to do it as an activity for it to happen, if that happens, that means we have recorded success.
So have you achieved that?
Well, I think we deployed. People voted to the extent that they were allowed to come and vote, or to the extent that they were motivated to vote. And so what we are now dealing with is counting the results, or counting the votes that people had to cast yesterday. The issues we are discussing are the challenges around that election, in terms of the limitations, in terms of the level of voter turnout, in terms of peculiar context of doing election logistics, the sense of people resorting to self-help. We have also seen comments about the adequacy or the functionality of the machines we deployed for both fingerprint and facial identification. In many cases, they work perfectly. In a number of places, there were challenges. The rack techs that we trained, basically to attend to malfunctioning equipment, bailed us out. But going forward, we still need, to do more training, around this new.
Is it a matter of training? Because it was about the device. Do you need to go back to the manufacturers? Or what can you tell us? What exactly the problem was?
No,
because a few times they had to troubleshoot it.
Yeah. Well, I must confess that my technical knowledge of that, in terms of whether you need to go back to the manufacturer or what else you needed to do, I really don't have to share. But I can tell you...
You amended the card reader used in 2015.
Yeah.
There were a bit of adjustments along the line up until 2019. But if you are experiencing a major problem like this in a governorship election, don't you think that there needs to be an adjustment, maybe because of environmental issue, heat, or whatsoever? Because I know they were not produced here in Nigeria.
Yeah, well, those are very important issues. But I don't think for me, the encounter I had on the field yesterday was so much about those high-level technical issues. Let me tell you, in mobilizing for this election of yesterday, there were many ad hoc staff that were trained on the use of the machine. Many of them, at the 11th hour, maybe because their parents told them not to, they just said they exited the whole engagement. They said, we are not going anymore. So in many instances, it was like an emergency situation.
Did you have a backup plan?
in the context in which we found ourselves, we did the best. And I think for me, I was really impressed by what we did against all the obstacles.
You also mentioned the issue of transportation. Going forward, I mean, this is not the first time. INEC had logistics problems, operation problem in 2019. You had operation problem in 2015. You had operation problem in 2011. On the day of election in 2011, you had to cancel the election and postpone it at noon.
Well,
these are big lessons for INEC.
No,
I mean, it brings some kind of embarrassment on your day, isn't it?
I agree with you, and I'm sure, you know, when you have incidents like that, it is certainly not part of the plan. You know, so what is not part of the plan? You have done everything humanly possible within your limitations. I mean, what else can you do? And we must also continue to debate in this country the whole question of trust that makes INEC go all the way to South Africa, to China, to print ballot papers. You know, you need to find out the cost of election. You need to also raise for yourself the whole question of how many democracies don't need to go that far, and yet they deliver. The fact that actors themselves need to give the process a chance. So these are issues, and it's a whole big bag that you need to open.
I think that I know it's a lot to chew for INEC.
Exactly.
With your experience, you've been with INEC for a while now. So I think INEC needs to sit back at the table and readjust things.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
Professor Samuel, it's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Especially we also always meet on the field. Thank you so much, Prof.
You are super active. Super active.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Professor Samuel there is the rank of Resident Electoral Commissioner for INEC in Niger State, but is a support official for INEC for this election. We take another break. And when we come back, we get some other views and perspectives to this. Don't forget, we have our eyes on what is happening inside the Coalition Center. As soon as we get signal, we go back there live for you when the activities resume. Don't go anywhere, everyone. You can see the live picture there. We are keeping tabs on the situation of things. No activities just yet. But we take a break and we'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us Friday on Sunday Politics on Channel Television. We're keeping tabs on what is happening at the Coalition Center. But we are live for you in a makeshift studio on the sideline of the collation of the governorship election of 2021 here in Anambra State. Of course, you can see the Coalition Center. No activity just yet. We're assessing the situation. 19 results announced and turned in. 2 are still outstanding. Let's talk more about the conduct and what really happened. The convener of the Civil Society Election Situation Room, Ms. Anna Obi, joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We did the pre-election assessment. Yes. Now, somewhat like a preliminary assessment, because it's not yet over. We can say a post-election because we're still in it. Yeah. So far, it's been so good for you, from your standpoint.
I think it was a good thing that we even met before we met at your studio on Politics Today with the INEC National Commissioner before the election itself. Some of our predictions, some of the worries that we had to do with the beavers, you know, and the fears that we had actually came out. And that is that you are talking about electronic accreditation, you are talking of electronic transmission of voting. But what happened on the election day was something else. You know, a lot of the card readers, you know, in about 67% were not working initially. But one of the lessons from that too was when we escalated where these things were, they were able to rectify some of them, you know, and voting started. But a number of them could not be rectified. But from the reasons that INEC, you know, from some of the things that they talked about, we were able to look at them, you know, and logistics were a problem. Some of the ad hoc staff that came on board, you know, like just came on board, were not able to utilize, you know, they did not have the technical knowledge. But a lot of it came out. I think the exciting thing was that voters turned out. Whether it was the voter turnout, the percentage is high is another thing, because this election is going to record at the end of the day a lower voter turnout than any other time that we've had. But we have a lot of lessons leading to the election. This is not just coming as a vacuum. It came out of a series of activities that came out. The bloodletting that was there before 4 weeks ago, you know, was carried to a lot of people. The adult staff who should have gone to the field were trained. Many of them were stopped by their parents and said, no, you know, elections are not worth your blood. You know, so there was a lot of scare. It was a very peaceful election, you know, in most of the areas, but maybe the density of that peace was just too much because many people did not want to go out. A lot of them had to take to, but so I really congratulate those who were courageous enough, because for me, a few people can go out there and you have to deal with that for the next 4 years of your life. And so the beavers disappointment from the civil society situation room. You know, I am the country director of ActionAid. We work in about 24, you know, states around the country. And so when you come, and the richness in us is that our members, the members of the civil society situation room, which has about 70, you know, organizations, did a lot of deployment. And from situation room, we're able to view, you know, we mobilized, we had jingles ringing to make sure that we can bring in the Anambra out, you know, to have that courage. We also called on IPOB to let the people go and at least exercise their constitutional rights. And I think they had that view. And so it's exciting to see that. And to see the Peace Committee coming in on board with Kuka Foundation coming on board, you know, this election showed how important, you know, Anambra is to the, you know, federation. So I would say, and so when you are looking at the beavers, the other thing we're talking about was the security. You know, we had to go, we had meeting with security agencies. We're also invited. There was a lot of transparency between the state actors and non-state actors about what they're going to do, their commitment to the fact that they were going to provide security. And the security men, our worry was, you need to respect human rights. And I think we saw that. So, they were very civil.
Yeah,
you know.
the take home for INEC for you, what would that be?
The take home is that, you know, when you say somebody fumbled your hand, because we went all out, they believe in the electronic transmission, electronic accreditation, you know, that belief, the beavers not working, they need to get it right. Because this is the first time they have deployed, you know, the beavers in a larger scale. What they did in Isoko North, you know, Isoko South is a very small one. And so what we have done, it shows that the electronic transmission can work. It really worked, because before midnight yesterday, we had the results already sent into the pool. And so we are asking INEC to look at itself very well. One of the things that we're concerned about was also the collection of the PVCs. You know, the latest registration, those who changed their pooling units and all of that. And we were concerned about, we registered that at politics today. And we were told that they were going to receive it, but as at Friday, when we were having that discussion, we said, what are you going to do with those that did not collect that? And we were worried that some people were going to be, you know, lots of things.
A lot of blessings, but I must sincerely thank you for your advocacy, for your interventions, and I hope that it improves the process. NLB, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you
for always very appreciative. NLB is the convener of the Civil Society Election Situation Room. We'll take a break, and we'll hear from another political party on the program about the assessment for this exercise. Stay with us. We'll be right back. So much for staying with us. Let's hear from the political party. We spoke with the national chairman of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, ABGA, Mr. Victor Oye. Now we're being joined by the party agent at this coalition, Dr. Obiogbolu Alex. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Chairman.
From the PDP point of view, what is the assessment of the exercise?
It's been high expectations, low on delivery, and it's a very sad story for Anambra and Nigeria today.
You were on the field. Now
yes.
You are monitoring for your party how the result is being collated.
Yes.
If you want to break it down for us, what do you mean by the expectation and the low performance?
Well, the expectations was that INEC had touted that they were going to use Anambra State as an example. They were going to deploy these beavers on a larger scale now, and Anambra was going to be the test state, and with it, it was going to signpost the success of 2023. So that was the high expectation we all did. On the low delivery was that When everyone thought that there was going to be a low turnout because of the insecurity, you saw the high turnout of voters at the polling booths, and yet they were not able to exercise their franchise. It was very sad. It was very sad.
Does that amount to the kind of performance? Does it affect the performance of your party?
Yes, again, it did, because what happened was that a lot of people put their fingerprints, thumbprints, and it was not accepted. And then, of course, in some other areas, people who obviously had the advantage of government, being in government, you know, there's a way people in Nigeria respect government, threw their weight around and ensured that they voted manually. And of course, at the end of the day, got the results in. Because if you were to review every beavers machine against what the 8A has, like you heard me mention inside there, you'll discover that most of these results will be cancelled. But in some areas, the presiding officers, the returning officers cancelled it because the beavers didn't match what was accredited on the forms. But in other places where they threw their weight around as government officials and the rest of them, they accepted the results. So it wasn't an even deliberation. So obviously
you were there in the room when the Orumba, isn't it?
Orumba, not for example.
Is being collected now afresh. What is going on?
Well, I'm there. I'm witnessing it. The issue, what do you call collation? Because if you're going to collect it afresh, like I suggested to them, you need the beavers also to be able to match the beavers against what you have as the result on the 8A form. So if you're just going to summarize only the 8A, it's not collation. You are tabulating.
What about Ihiala?
Ihiala, there was no election, and we all agreed. All the agents agreed that there was no election.
What led to that? What caused it?
Because the INEC on the field, INEC didn't have enough staffing. It wasn't just in Ihiala. If you look at what we identified as where there were no elections or where there were cancellations because of non-use of the beavers, 13 local governments are affected. 13.
So for you, I mean, if you were to say this is the takeaway, what you have to say, the lesson, the biggest lesson for this election, what would it be?
The big lesson was that INEC always has to have a plan B. In life, when you go into a business or a venture, there must be a plan B.
For your party, biggest lesson?
From our party, the biggest lesson was that what we saw in Nigeria, a lot of money spent on vote buying. I mean, clearly...
You saw vote buying?
We saw vote buying.
Did your party participate in it?
Not to my knowledge.
Which party?
PDP.
Participated in it?
No, I said, you asked me, did my party participate in it?
You were,
and I said, no, not to my knowledge.
You saw vote buying?
No, we witnessed vote buying from reports getting from our agents, from Situation Room. They said people were paying a lot of money for that.
And your party did not pay?
No. I mean, where would we want to be?
Dr. Obiogbolu Alex, thank you so much for joining us. He is the party agent of the PDP right here for the collation exercise where we're monitoring for you. Let me show you again a picture of what is happening on the inside of the collation center. No activity just yet. As soon as we get signal that something is happening, we will come to you with the pictures to you for you. So you can see that 19 local governments declared, 2 are still outstanding in this very critical election for the people of Anambra State. Well, that's how we draw the curtains of the program tonight. Many thanks everyone for watching. I'm sure Kimale. Have a fruitful evening.